You're scrolling through job postings again, third time this month, not because you got fired, though that's happened before, but because you can't shake the feeling that this time, you'll finally be the person who gets things done. But here's what you won't admit out loud. You're terrified it's not the job, it's you. You have the degree, you have the intelligence, you've read the productivity books, downloaded the apps, color-coded your calendar. You know what you need to do, but when it's time to start that report, make that phone call, clean that kitchen, you freeze, not physically, psychologically. You disappear into scrolling, into just 5 more minutes, into a fog of paralysis that makes you hate yourself a little more each day. And the worst part, everyone else seems fine. They show up, they follow through. They don't spend Sunday night panicking about the work. They didn't do all weekend. So you ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Here's what I need you to hear. Nothing is wrong with you. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not uniquely defective. What you are is someone who never learned a specific skill. A skill so fundamental that most people don't even realize it's a skill. They think it's character, willpower, just doing it, but it's not. It's called self-discipline. And if no one taught you how to build it, you've been trying to run a marathon on legs that were never trained to walk. Let me reframe something you've believed your entire life. You think, I'm lazy. But what if I told you that laziness, the way you experience it, isn't a character flaw at all? What if it's a skill gap? Think about it. If someone never learned to swim, we don't call them lazy when they panic in deep water. We don't shame them for just not trying hard enough. We understand. They never learned the skill. Self-discipline is exactly the same. It's the ability to make yourself do things you don't want to do, to stop yourself from doing things you shouldn't do, to tolerate boredom, discomfort, and delayed gratification. And here's the truth nobody tells you. This is learned in childhood, through structure, through consequences, through 1,000 small moments of, no, finish this first, and I know it's hard, but you can do it. If you didn't get those moments, if your childhood was too easy, too unstructured, too free, you didn't develop the psychological muscle that makes just doing it possible. So when you struggle to start that project, to stick to that diet, to wake up on time, you're not failing at life. You're struggling with a skill you were never taught. And here's the most important part. Skills can be learned, even now, even as an adult, even after years of calling yourself lazy. But first, you need to understand where this gap came from and why so many of us are walking around with it. Let me tell you about William. William was brilliant, IQ off the charts, MBA from a top-tier school, the kind of guy who could explain complex market trends over coffee and make it sound like poetry. But William couldn't keep a job, not because he was incompetent, not because he didn't care, but because he couldn't do the boring parts, the daily grind of emails and reports and coordination, the unglamorous, tedious work that keeps any career afloat. He'd start strong, impress everyone. Then slowly, inevitably, the cracks would show missed deadlines, delayed responses, projects that somehow never quite got finished. His bosses would grow frustrated, his colleagues would stop relying on him, and William would find himself once again looking for a new start. When he came to therapy, he was angry, not at his employers, at himself. I know what I need to do, he'd say. I'm not stupid, so why can't I just do it? We spent months unraveling that question, and what we found wasn't a story of laziness or lack of ambition. It was a story of a childhood that loved him deeply, but prepared him poorly. William's mother adored him. She provided everything: emotional warmth, material comfort, endless support. She never pushed him, never demanded, never made him do anything he didn't want to do. It felt like love, and it was love. But love, as it turns out, isn't always enough, because while William was being loved, He wasn't being trained, and the difference, though invisible at the time, would haunt him for decades. William's childhood looked perfect from the outside. A nice house, a loving mother, no trauma, no abuse, no obvious dysfunction. He was fed, clothed, safe. His mother asked about his day, helped with homework when he asked, never raised her voice. But here's what didn't happen. William didn't have chores, not real ones anyway. His mother would occasionally ask him to help, but if he said he was busy or forgot, she'd just do it herself. It's easier, she'd say. William didn't have a bedtime. He could stay up as late as he wanted, playing games or watching TV. His mother believed in letting kids be kids. William didn't have structure around homework. He'd wait until the last possible moment, then rush through it before school. And because he was smart, it worked. He'd still get decent grades. There were rules, technically, but they were soft, negotiable. If William pushed back, his mother would cave. She didn't want to be the mean parent. She wanted him to be happy, and he was happy. Blissfully, carelessly happy. Because childhood, for William, required almost nothing of him. No one made him clean his room properly. No one checked if he'd practiced an instrument or finished a project. No one sat him down at the kitchen table and said, "You're going to scrub this until it's clean, even if it takes an hour, even if you hate it." Instead, he drifted. He did what he wanted, when he wanted. And when things got hard or boring, he simply stopped. His mother never intervened. She loved him. She believed that was enough. But here's what William never learned: how to make himself do something difficult, how to sit with discomfort, how to push through boredom, how to tolerate the feeling of "I don't want to" and do it anyway. That internal voice that says, "It doesn't matter how you feel right now. This needs to be done." William never developed it because no one ever required him to. And so, when William entered adulthood, where success depends almost entirely on doing things you don't want to do, he was utterly unprepared. This is called emotional neglect, not the dramatic kind, not abandonment or abuse, but a quiet, invisible kind of neglect that hides inside love. It's what happens when parents provide warmth and affection, but not structure, not discipline, not the uncomfortable, tedious work of teaching a child to function, and it's shockingly common. Because our culture has confused two very different things, love and preparation. We've been told that childhood should be easy, that kids should be free to explore, to play, to avoid stress. That pushing them, demanding things from them, making them uncomfortable is somehow harmful. But that's not how human development works. Children learn self-discipline the same way they learn language or social skills, through repetition, guidance, and practice. They learn it when parents set rules and enforce them, not cruelly, not rigidly, but consistently. They learn it when they're given age-appropriate chores and held accountable for doing them well. They learn it when they face small challenges, cleaning their room, practicing a skill, finishing homework, and have to push through even when it's boring. They learn it through thousands of tiny moments where an adult says, "I know you don't feel like it, but you're going to do it anyway." Without those moments, the brain never builds the neural pathways for self-control. The psychological infrastructure for discipline simply doesn't form, and the child grows up feeling like everyone else got a manual they never received. Here's the paradox. William's easy childhood felt like a gift. It was a gift, but it was also a theft, because while he was being spared discomfort, he was also being robbed of resilience. Think of it like this. Imagine a child who's never allowed to get sick. Their parents keep them in a sterile bubble, protecting them from every germ. They never catch a cold, never run a fever, never feel that awful flu ache. Sounds perfect, right? Except their immune system never develops. it never learns to fight, and when they finally encounter illness as an adult, their body has no defense. That's what happened to William. But psychologically, his mother protected him from discomfort, from boredom, from the tedious, frustrating work of being disciplined, and in doing so, she prevented him from building the psychological immune system he'd need for adult life. This is the truth we don't want to hear. A childhood that's too easy creates adults who can't handle difficulty, not because they're weak, but because they were never given the chance to become strong. William needed to argue with his mother about whether the kitchen was clean enough. He needed to be bored during chores. He needed to experience the discomfort of, I have to do this even though I don't want to. Those small battles would have been his training ground. Instead, he got comfort, freedom, ease, and now, as an adult, he's paying the price. Because the world doesn't care about your comfort. Jobs have deadlines. Relationships require effort. Life demands that you show up and do boring, hard things. And if you were never trained for that, you'll struggle every single day. Let's get specific about how this skill actually develops. Self-discipline is built through 3 core experiences. First, structure and rules. Children need boundaries, not harsh, punitive ones, but clear expectations that are consistently enforced. Homework before screen time. Clean your plate before dessert. Bedtime is 9 p.m., even on weekends. These rules feel restrictive. Kids hate them, but that's the point. They're learning to tolerate no, to delay gratification, to do things they don't want to do because they have to. Second, supervised accountability. It's not enough to have rules. Someone has to check. Did you actually clean your room or just shove everything under the bed? Did you finish that book report or scribble something at midnight? This is where many well-meaning parents fail. They set expectations but don't follow through, and kids quickly learn rules are optional. Third, uncomfortable growth. Children need to face challenges that are slightly beyond their comfort zone. Learning an instrument when practice is boring, finishing a difficult homework assignment, resolving a conflict with a sibling. These moments are uncomfortable. That's the point. Discomfort is where growth happens. And here's the crucial part. They need an adult guiding them through it. Not doing it for them, not rescuing them, but staying present and saying, I know this is hard. You can do it anyway. Without these 3 elements, structure, accountability, and uncomfortable growth, the brain never develops the self-regulatory circuits that make discipline feel natural, and the child grows into an adult who knows what they should do, but can't make themselves do it. Back to William. By the time he reached his 30s, his life was a pattern of almosts. He'd get hired because he interviewed brilliantly. He'd start projects with genuine enthusiasm. He'd have moments of productivity that convinced everyone, including himself, that this time would be different. But then the mundane would creep in, the daily status reports, the coordination emails, the tedious data entry that everyone hates but everyone does anyway. William would procrastinate, not dramatically. He'd tell himself, I'll do it after lunch, then after this meeting, then tomorrow morning, first thing. But tomorrow morning, the resistance would be even stronger, and the task would grow in his mind from annoying to impossible. His colleagues would notice. At first they'd be patient. No worries, just get it to me when you can. But patience has limits. Eventually his boss would sit him down. William, you're brilliant, but you're unreliable. I need someone I can count on. And William would promise to do better. He'd mean it. He'd stay late for a week catching up on everything. But the underlying problem never changed, because William wasn't failing at work. He was failing at the invisible skill everyone assumed he had, the ability to make himself do something boring and uncomfortable simply because it needed to be done. His co-workers could do this, not because they enjoyed the tedious tasks, but because they'd learned, somewhere along the way, how to override their feelings and just execute. William never learned that. And no amount of intelligence, education, or genuine desire could compensate. He'd been taught to follow his interests, his passions, his inspiration, but he'd never been taught to function when inspiration was absent. And in the real world, inspiration is absent most of the time. Maybe you see yourself in William's story, or maybe you're thinking, that's not quite me. So let's get specific. Here are the signs that you might be struggling with underdeveloped self-discipline. You procrastinate on tasks you know are important, not because you don't care, but because you can't seem to start. The resistance feels physical, overwhelming. You work best under pressure, which sounds productive until you realize it means you can't function without panic. You need the deadline to be tomorrow before you can act today. You struggle with anything routine or mundane. The dishes pile up, the emails go unanswered. The small, boring tasks that keep life functional feel impossibly heavy. You're often late, not because you don't value other people's time, but because you can't make yourself start getting ready until the last possible second. You eat, spend, or consume more than you intended. You tell yourself just one more, and then it's 3 hours later and you're angry at yourself again. You avoid discomfort at almost any cost. If something feels hard, boring, or frustrating, you find ways to escape. Scrolling, snacking, I'll do it later. You're furious with yourself because you know you're capable. You see what you could accomplish, but there's this gap between knowing and doing, and every day it makes you hate yourself a little more. And here's the crucial one. You have a history of underachievement, not because you lack talent, but because you can't sustain effort. You start strong and fade fast. If you're nodding along to more than a few of these, you're not alone, and more importantly, this isn't a life sentence. Think of self-discipline like a muscle, not metaphorically, literally, in the brain. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive function, impulse control, and delayed gratification, strengthens through use. Just like your biceps strengthen when you lift weights, when a child is consistently required to do difficult, boring tasks, their prefrontal cortex gets a workout. Those neural pathways thicken. The connections strengthen. Self-control becomes easier, more automatic. But if a child is rarely required to override their impulses, if they're allowed to quit when things get hard, if they grow up in an environment of total freedom, their prefrontal cortex never gets that training. It's like trying to run a marathon without ever having trained. Your muscles aren't weak because you're lazy. They're weak because you never built them. This is why willpower feels so impossible for you, not because you're broken, but because you're trying to lift heavy weight with muscles you never developed. And here's the good news. Muscles can be built. At any age, you can't go back and have a different childhood, but you can start building that muscle now. It won't be fast. It won't be easy. You're essentially doing physical therapy for a part of your brain that never got properly trained. But it's possible. You just need to understand. This isn't about trying harder. It's not about just doing it. It's not about finding the right productivity hack. It's about systematically, intentionally training a skill you were never taught. And that means starting small, painfully small, embarrassingly small, because you're not running a marathon yet. You're learning to walk. So what do you do with this information? First, you stop hating yourself. I mean it. The self-loathing, the shame, the internal voice that screams, why can't you just be normal? It needs to stop, because now you know this isn't a character flaw. It's not a moral failing. It's not evidence that you're worthless or broken. It's a skill gap. One that was created by circumstances outside your control. You were a child. You didn't choose your upbringing. You didn't decide to skip the lessons on self-discipline. And beating yourself up for not having a skill you were never taught is like being angry at yourself for not speaking a language no one ever spoke to you. Second, you accept that this will be hard. Learning self-discipline as an adult is possible, but it's not a quick fix. It's not a hack. It's not something you'll master in a week or even a month. You're retraining your brain, building neural pathways that should have formed in childhood. It's uncomfortable, it's slow, and you'll fail repeatedly before you succeed. But that's okay. Because every attempt, every small success, every moment where you do something difficult even though you don't want to, that's progress. Third, you get honest about what you need. For some people, this is a solo journey. Self-help books, online resources, personal experimentation. For others, especially those with significant emotional neglect, therapy is crucial because this isn't just about productivity. It's about healing the part of you that never learned to function under pressure. There's no shame in needing help. This is hard work. You don't have to do it alone. Now, let's talk about what building this skill actually looks like. Here's how you start building self-discipline when you're starting from scratch. Start absurdly small. Not, I'm going to work out every day. That's too big. You'll fail and you'll feel worse. Instead, I'm going to put on my workout clothes. That's it. Just the clothes. Every day for a week. It sounds stupid, it feels stupid. But you're not training your body. You're training your brain to follow through on a commitment, even when it doesn't feel like it. Make it uncomfortable on purpose. Remember, discomfort is where the growth happens. So choose tasks that are boring or tedious. Fold laundry for 10 minutes. Wash dishes immediately after dinner. Make your bed every morning. These tasks aren't glamorous, but they're perfect training because they require you to override the impulse to do something easier. Use external structure. Your brain doesn't have internal discipline yet. So create external discipline. Set alarms. Use apps. Ask someone to check in on you. This isn't cheating. This is scaffolding. You're building the structure your childhood should have provided. Expect failure. Plan for it. You're going to miss days. You're going to procrastinate. You're going to fail. That's not a sign to give up. That's part of the process. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is repetition. Every time you try again after failing, you're strengthening that muscle increase gradually. Once something becomes easy, truly easy, not just I can force myself, add one small challenge. 10 minutes of work becomes 15. One task becomes 2. But slowly, so slowly, because you're building a foundation, and foundations take time. This is a years-long process, not because you're slow, but because you're learning something most people learned across their entire childhood. Be patient with yourself. You're doing the work now. Let me tell you how William's story ends. It took him 3 years, 3 years of therapy, 3 years of failing, trying again, failing differently, 3 years of forcing himself to do small, boring tasks, even when every fiber of his being screamed quit. He started with laundry, just putting clothes in the hamper every night. It took him 2 weeks to make it automatic, then dishes, then making his bed, then 15 minutes of focused work before checking email. He failed constantly. There were weeks where he backslid completely, where he fell into old patterns and hated himself for it. But he kept coming back, and slowly, so slowly he barely noticed, something shifted. The resistance didn't disappear, but it got quieter. The gap between I should do this and I'm doing this shortened. His brain was building new pathways. The muscle was strengthening. By year 2, he could handle full work days. Not perfectly, not easily, but reliably. By year 3, he got promoted, not because he became superhuman, but because he became functional. He could do the boring work. He could meet deadlines. He could be counted on. And for the first time in his adult life, William felt like he was living up to his potential. Was it hard? Absolutely. Was it worth it? He'd tell you yes every time, because the alternative, spending the rest of his life trapped in the cycle of shame, procrastination, and underachievement, was unbearable. William's mother loved him, but she didn't prepare him, so William had to prepare himself as an adult, from scratch. It wasn't fair, but it was necessary, and he did it. If you're reading this and seeing yourself in William's story, hear this. You can do it too. Let's come back to where we started. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not uniquely defective or weak or failing at something everyone else finds easy. You're someone who was never taught a skill, a fundamental, crucial skill that most people learned so gradually they don't even realize they have it. Self-discipline, the ability to make yourself do hard, boring, uncomfortable things, the ability to delay gratification, tolerate discomfort, and function when you don't feel like it. This isn't something you're born with. It's something you learn. And if you didn't learn it, if your childhood was too easy, too free, too unstructured, you're now facing the difficult task of learning it as an adult. It's not fair. You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose to grow up without this foundation. But here you are. And you have a choice. You can keep believing you're lazy. You can keep hating yourself. You can keep trying the same productivity hacks and wondering why nothing works. Or you can accept the truth. This is a skill you need to build from the ground up. Slowly, painfully, imperfectly. It won't be fast. It won't be easy. There will be days where you feel like you're making no progress at all. But every time you do something difficult, every time you override your impulse to quit, to scroll, to do it later, you're building that muscle. You're creating the neural pathways you should have had all along. You're teaching yourself what no one taught you. And that's not failure, that's courage. So start small. Start today. Start with something so tiny it feels ridiculous. Make your bed. Wash one dish. Work for 10 minutes. Not because it matters, but because you're training yourself to follow through. And tomorrow, do it again, and the next day, and the next. Some days you'll fail. That's okay. You're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to build a pattern, and patterns once established become automatic. The you that exists 5 years from now, the one who can show up, follow through, and function reliably, is built one small, uncomfortable decision at a time. You didn't get the childhood that would have prepared you, but you still get a future. And this time you get to build it. This is your story now, not your parents', not your past's, yours. So take a breath, forgive yourself for what you didn't know, and start building the person you're capable of becoming, one boring, difficult, unglamorous task at a time. You've got this. This is video 14 in our emotional neglect series. In the next video, we're exploring a question that haunts families every day. Why would someone who seemed fine, who had everything, choose to end their life? I'm going to tell you about Robin, 32, successful, the friend everyone relied on. On the surface, she had it all, but surfaces lie, because what no one saw was the invisible weight she'd carried since childhood, the kind emotional neglect creates. 95 lives lost every day in the US alone. Next video, we go into that hidden world. I'll see you there.